Guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Adrienne Hull. I am a single mom from Greenville, North Carolina. I'm 34 years old and I have two beautiful children, Gabriel, who's 14, and Ava, who's 10. And we currently live in Durham, North Carolina. And so the purpose of this video for today is for me to share with you guys why my first attempt at traveling the world full-time failed. And that whole process, and then now our process of trying to leave again, to like our second attempt basically at traveling the world. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, share with others if you like. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So again, I was born and raised in Greenville, North Carolina. I spent all my childhood there, all my young adulthood there, really all of my time there until recently. But when I was younger, I went to public school up until about 9th grade, maybe midway through 9th grade. My parents took me out of school and I was homeschooled. And part of the reason for that is because my parents are very religious. They're Jehovah's Witnesses. And I think at the time they felt like that was the best thing for me. So I was taken out of school in 9th grade. I did homeschooling for a while. And then I went to Job Corps when I was about 16, I believe. And then after that, I came back home and just got my GED. And so I was done with school for a while. So when after my son was born, when I was 20, when he was about 3 months old, I decided to go back to school full time. And I did that, and I picked community college, but it was very short-lived. I ran into some roadblocks and ended up dropping out. So, I went to work full time and I did that for a few years. And it wasn't until right after my daughter was born that I made a decision like, okay, I need to get serious about something. And education was where I thought it was. It was like, okay, I need to work on my education, get some degrees, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I went back to school. I think I graduated finally from Pitt Community College in 2014 with my associate in arts degree. And from there, I transferred to East Carolina University, go Pirates. And I got a bachelor's in diversity and social justice, which is like, they have a program where you can basically design your own degree. And so the title of my degree, it's a Bachelor of Science in Diversity and Social Justice. And at the time, my thinking was, I wanted to help other single moms, other moms who were going through similar situations like myself, and who wanted to kind of raise themselves up out of whatever situation that they were into and make a better life for themselves, all of that jazz. So when I graduated in 2016, in that summer of 2016, I got an internship at the local community shelter. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn the ropes from them and just kind of figure out how to start my own nonprofit. And by the time that summer was over and my internship was over, I kind of realized like, oh my God, like I need to start making money. I need to start working again. And so I kind of tabled the idea of starting a nonprofit and I started looking for a job again. And after a couple of months, I wasn't really getting any bites as far as jobs. And so there was one point where I made a decision. I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself like a week off and just kind of throw myself into something else just to kind of take my mind off of this because it was so stressful at that point for me. And so what I ended up doing was throwing myself into my kids' schools and their activities. And like I was going on field trips and volunteering in the classroom and helping out with different fundraising and things like that. And so it was during that time that I was like, wow, okay, so this is fun. This is nice to be able to be with my kids all day or part of the day, basically, and to, be at events, school events and things like that. So I was like, well, maybe I should go into teaching. Teaching was something that I had thought about years before, but again, it was something that I eventually tabled and moved on to something else. But now it was like, okay, this could be a definite possibility. So I wanted to be sure, obviously. So I ended up, a friend of mine suggested, hey, why don't you get a job subbing, So I was like, okay, I'll try that. So I ended up getting a job as a substitute teacher for Pitt County. And I think I was hired in December and I ended up starting in January of 2017. So January of 2017 all the way through June of 2017, which was when school ended, that's what I was doing. I was subbing and I was doing pre-K all the way to 12th grade, just various grades during that time period. And so also during that time period, I had applied and was accepted into grad school back at ECU. And it was a 1-year accelerated teaching program. So, okay, the end of the school year ended, and then I believe my graduate school program started towards the end of June or maybe the beginning part of July of 2017. So, okay, I'm in my program, going to school, doing stuff online as well, because some of my classes were online because I started in the summer. So fast forward, the following year, I graduated in May of 2018 with my Master of Arts in Teaching degree, and I got my license, and I accepted a position teaching in Wake County, which is not too far from here, actually. It's kind of right around the corner from us, from where we are now. But so I accepted a position teaching 4th grade public school. And so I was like, okay, finally, I finally have kind of gotten myself to the point where I could be self-sufficient and I can take care of myself and take care of my kids. So I was happy about that. And everything happened so fast. Like I accepted the position and I knew that we would end up moving here, but initially the first maybe week or a week and a half, I was driving back and forth from Greenville to Wake County, which again, it's like 2 hours one way. And so I would get up at like 4 a.m. in the morning and then drive to my school. Fortunately, it was like maybe right before the school year started. So I was doing trainings. I hadn't started teaching yet, but I was doing trainings and attending meetings at the school and like getting my classroom ready, that sort of thing. So, okay. The day that we had open house, which was on a Friday, I don't remember the date, but it was on a Friday. Open house. We did open house about midday. And then as soon as open house was over with, I remember going to the apartment, getting the keys, and we literally moved in that night. And we were still out, like bringing boxes and stuff in at like 11, 12 o'clock at night. So, okay. After that was over with, that following Monday, school started. So it was a pretty stressful time. I didn't see it as much, at the time. I was like, okay, this is just something that I have to do to get to where I want to be. So, school started and it was a lot initially. Like I was very overwhelmed, obviously. I was teaching 4th grade, which wasn't the grade level that I had initially applied for, but I was like, you know what? I'm a brand new teacher. I felt like I had to prove myself. And so I was like, I need to take this job and just push through. So, started in August. So August, September, I think by October, it was really starting to hit me like, oh my God, what did I just do? This is a lot. It's very stressful. I'm stressed out. And then, my kids started feeling the effects of that as well. Because here's the thing. So with my job, school didn't start until like 8:45ish, I think, when kids came in. But I was always up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning because I had to get up. I had to get myself ready. I had to get the kids ready. I had to drive my son like 20 minutes one way to his school because he was in a high school. And the way it was, so we technically lived in Durham County, but I was teaching in Wake County. And so since my daughter was going to be at my school in Wake County, I thought, well, it doesn't make sense for my son to be in a completely different county. So let's bring him to Wake County as well. The downside with that was there was no bus to take him, obviously. So I had to drive him myself, which again, initially didn't seem like a big deal to me. It's like, okay, just something that I have to do. But I was getting up early, getting ready, driving him to school, then driving back to my school so that, I could be able to teach and drop my daughter off and everything. And so we would do that. School started again like 8:45, 9:15 until like 3:45ish, I think, in the afternoons. And by that time, my son actually, he was getting out of school like an hour before we got out of school. So he would have to wait. There was like a library in the neighborhood that he would walk up to, and he would have to wait for us, sometimes an hour and a half, sometimes longer, honestly. And so that was starting to become an issue as well, and things just kind of compounded, and it just became more stressful, and the job became more stressful, and the workload became more stressful. And by I think Thanksgiving or Christmas, the holidays of 2018, I was at a point where I was like, oh my God, like this is not working. I maybe need to try and find something else because this is definitely not working. So I started I've always, like I said before, I've always been into traveling. I've always wanted to travel. And I started watching more YouTube videos about women who were traveling and solo travelers or family travel. And then I found single mom travelers, like Trippin' Mama. And I started like watching the videos and like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is fantastic. How do I do this? So fast forward to maybe January, February of 2019. I was at a point in my life where things were just getting worse and worse. And I was starting to have like physical symptoms of the stress and the pressure and even depression that I was going through at the time with my job. And, I was starting to have like panic attacks, and I was having chest pains, and I was waking up in the morning just dreading going into work. And, I won't go into details at this point about all of the specifics at my job, but it was definitely a situation that I was trying to get myself out of, and get my kids out of. And ultimately, even though it was the end of the school year, a lot of people were like, oh, just stick it out, wait until June. In April, I believe it was April the 20th or April the 21st, I ended up, that was my last day. So I had given my notice, and mid-April, I quit my job teaching. And at the time, and even now, still, I definitely feel like that was the best decision for me and my kids, because, things were falling apart, and all three of us were just struggling. I was struggling at my job, and they were struggling in the sense that I had always been there for my kids, like been able to attend school events and take them, to do sports and things like that. And that had pretty much fallen apart. Like I was so consumed with my own work that I couldn't focus and spend as much time with my kids like I wanted to. So, again, I do not regret that decision to leave at all. It was sad because I didn't want to leave my students. As a teacher, you form a bond with your students, and there were definitely tears before I left there, from myself and from my students. So it was a hard decision, but one that I thought and felt was definitely necessary for my own mental health and for my kids as well. So, okay, left the job in April. First few weeks, it was just like, okay, just trying to get into the motions, get myself healthy again. You know, I started like working out and walking and trying to eat healthier and just get my mindset, you know, prepared for what was to come. And I started like, you know, some side hustles. I was doing Lyft and Uber, and I was teaching online a little bit initially. And during this process also, you know, I made the decision to like, okay, we're going to do this whole traveling thing. We're going to try to make this work. So, you know, I started selling and or giving away and or putting in storage certain like items, our personal items, furniture and stuff like that. And started the whole process of like buying our travel bags and all of our gear and everything, which it wasn't a lot. Like I don't feel like I went overboard, but you know, the just those initial things that we definitely would need for travel full time. So going through that process, and also, you know, working various little part-time positions. I had some savings because that year after tax time, I made a decision like, okay, I'm going to hold on to X amount of money, and then I'm also going to try to save as well. So I did that. And so the plan last year was that our lease was up in August of 2019. And so I was like, okay, this is the perfect time. As soon as our lease is up, then we'll leave. We'll, you know, start our journey. Initially, we had planned to go down to Florida, where my best friend is. She's in Tampa, Florida. Hey, Lynette. And we were going to spend some time with her and her family for like maybe, I don't know, a few days, maybe a week. And then we were going to fly onward to Mexico and just kind of go from there. And so we started to run into some roadblocks, maybe June-ish, you know, like early June. And so, but I was determined. I was like, no, we got to push forward. We got to make this happen. So we got to August, and like I said, we initially had planned to stay in Mexico, and those plans kind of fell through a bit. There was some miscommunication. And so, you know, I was kind of freaking out, and I was talking with my friend, my best friend in Florida, and she was like, you know what, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Just come down here, get down here, then we can sit together and we can talk it over and figure everything out. So I was like, okay. At the time, right before we left, I have a Honda Civic, and I lease it. And so I made a decision that, okay, I'm going to try to basically end my lease early. It wasn't time for my car to be turned in, but I was trying to basically sell it back to the dealership. So I was like, okay. And it seemed like an easy enough process at the time, but again, it was one of those things in hindsight that I did not think through well enough. I didn't prepare well enough for that. So I had another friend of mine that went with me to the dealership, and we're trying to get everything situated. And because my car had been into a couple of accidents, even though they weren't my fault, it still like made the value of my car depreciate. So trying to sell it back to the dealership, it was going to cost me money. Like I would be able to turn it in, but then I'd have to pay X amount of dollars on top of that, and I wasn't trying to hear that. So freak out point again, because I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I wasn't planning on taking the car with me. We were gonna fly. So again, my girlfriend was like, hey, don't worry about it. Bring the car down here to Florida, and you can leave it here while you're gone, and then it'll be here when you get back. Okay, perfect, fine. So we end up the day that my lease ended, the kids and I had a girlfriend of mine that came over, and she helped us clean out the apartment and get everything situated, so that we could, you know, pass our move out inspection and whatnot. And so we did that, And I had initially bought train tickets. So we were going to take the train from North Carolina down to Florida, and then we were going to fly from Florida to Mexico. So being that the car situation did not work, we ended up having to keep the car. And so we ended up, the day that the lease was up, we decided, okay, you know, by the time we finished cleaning out the apartment and getting all of that situated, it was like midday, or like early afternoon, I believe it was. And so I was like, there's no way I'm driving down now. So, okay, we ended up getting a hotel room because my friend, her apartment was full at the time, and it was better that way. So we ended up getting a hotel room. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna wake up in the morning, like 6:30, 7 o'clock. I'm gonna go to the Honda dealership and get my oil change because I needed to do that before I left. And again, that was something that I hadn't planned and prepared for. So we got up the next morning, went to the dealership, and of course, in hindsight, it was like a Saturday morning. It was during the summertime. There were no available appointments. You know, Honda was like, we can probably see you next week. So that didn't work out. And so I ended up going to like Jiffy Lube to get the car serviced and everything. Okay. So it was like midday, that next day that we had planned to leave. And so I was like, okay, again, not gonna leave midday to start an 8 or 9 hour trip to Florida. So, okay, we'll just stay another night at the hotel, leave out first thing the next morning. Okay, fine. So the next morning we got up early, I think maybe 5 or 6 o'clock, and we took off to Florida. Great. Finally on the road, driving down. I think we made it to Florida about 4 p.m., like 3:30, 4 p.m. It was on a Saturday. And my friend and her family welcomed us with open arms. It was a really good experience. It was our first time being in Florida. It was nice to see, you know, sunshine and mangoes and palm trees, and just, I loved it. We definitely had a blast in Tampa, Florida. So we were kind of between Tampa, Temple Crest, kind of side by side. So we got there, and you know, my friend and I, we're talking. We were like, okay, what's next? What am I gonna do? So also during this process that we came down to Florida, once we got there, there was hurricane coming. Actually, several hurricanes. I think there was like 2 or 3 altogether that were coming at the same time. And I don't know about anywhere else, but in Florida, at least where we were, people were starting to panic a little bit. Like, okay, we got to get this and that. And my friend, we went out one day and we were like looking for water and like, you know, canned goods and stuff, and realized there was no water. And you know, I remember us like calling around different places. My friend was calling around different places trying to find water. And I was like, oh my God, I felt so bad. And I was like, oh, I can't leave right now. You know, you guys are in crisis right now. I need to stay and see you through this. So we kind of put off going to the airport and getting the tickets for like a day or two. And then when we finally did go to the airport, what do you think happened? So because of the storm, tickets were marked way up. So before we left North Carolina, the tickets were like maybe $250, $300 a piece, just one-way tickets from Tampa to Mexico. And I was like, okay, you know, that'll be fine. So when we got down in Tampa, and when we finally decided to go to the airport, and in the midst of this hurricane, or these hurricanes, I should say, tickets were marked all the way up. I mean, like $700, $800, even $1,000. And the other issue was, we went to the airport and I was being told that you can't do one way. You have to do round trip, or either you have to have a ticket showing that you're leaving Mexico at some point. And, you know, I was just thinking about the costs and everything. And I was like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting this, blah, blah, blah. So I made a decision then. My friend was like, okay, let's just table this idea for now. Wait until the hurricane is over with. Then tickets will go back down, and, you know, things will be more reasonable then. So I was like, okay. We ended up staying in Tampa about 2 weeks. And during that process, it was like a very up and down, not just because of the hurricane and because we were trying to travel. It was just a lot. It was a lot to process. And things were kind of starting to get a little cramped where we were, because my friend, they have a lovely home in Tampa, but it's not made for like 7 or 8 people, so I was trying to figure out, okay, we got to figure something out. We got to go. We're either going to leave and catch a plane somewhere, or maybe we need to figure out some other situation. And that's when I started to think, okay, just what should I do? And I kind of brainstormed, like, okay, I have my teaching license. Maybe I find a teaching job here in Florida and stay for a year or so, and then try again at a later date. And I started to also think about, okay, well, maybe as much as I don't want to, maybe I need to go back to North Carolina, get another job there, and then again, travel at a later date, kind of recuperate, and save up more money, definitely, and just have a better plan in place. And ultimately, long story short, that the latter is what we did. We ended up coming back to North Carolina in, I believe, so like September-ish, we came back to North Carolina. We ended up staying with family for a little bit. And I made a lot of hard decisions during that time, because again, it never crossed my mind that this wouldn't work and that we'd be back in North Carolina. And it was like a huge blow to my ego. And I don't know, it was really unfortunate, for everyone involved. So we came back to North Carolina. I ended up applying for and getting a teaching position, accepted it in November. So like November, I think it was the 11th or something like that. So initially, and it actually took me a while to finally come to decision to go back into teaching, because I didn't plan on it, not going back into public school. And so after about a month of kind of biding my time, I was like, okay, I'll go back into teaching. It's something that I know that I can do. So, why not? Just go back into teaching, maybe do a different grade level. Okay. So, that's what I did. I applied, I think October-ish, and had the job in November, and pretty much kind of restarted our life all over again. I signed a new lease where we are now, in November. And so now we're pretty much, kids are in public school. I'm teaching 2nd grade, which is, it's wonderful. It's been nice having like younger students, I should say. But at the same time, it's like, okay, this is a temporary situation for me. I know that I don't plan on doing this long term. So now we're kind of going through the process of, okay, saving up, coming up with a plan, an itinerary, somewhat of an itinerary for how things are going to proceed. So our plan now is to leave again this year. I haven't really solidified a date yet, but I'm thinking the kids want to finish school here. They've made a couple of friends, so they want to finish out the school year. And so the goal is to leave again once school is over with. Not 100% sure where we're going at. I know Mexico was always at the top of my list because it was still close enough to the United States where, like, if we needed to come back, for whatever reason, it would be easy enough. But I don't know. I don't know if we're going to start in Mexico or not. We'll see. You'll have to follow along. But again, that's my video as to why traveling abroad full-time did not work, our first attempt. And my goal moving forward is to chronologize this whole process of preparing to leave the world to travel, or sorry, leave the world, to leave the States and travel full time. And just the process behind that, you know, just getting our gear ready and what we're taking, and just that whole process. And then also I want to do some videos just on like my life and some things that I've overcome. I want to do videos about my first year teaching and why that did not work. And I want to do just a lot of like lifestyle videos. Like I feel like my YouTube channel is just a lifestyle channel, like my and my kids' life, basically. We even have dreams of having our own TV show one day. So that's something that you know, we want to like build up to. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you guys will like it, comment, subscribe to our channel, and definitely share the video with your friends. And I hope to see you very soon in the next video. Have a good one.